Hi everyone. Let's go ahead and we're going to now import your image into Adobe Illustrator, and then we're going to create a custom brush to trace over our drawing so that we can create a final artwork that is lined and inked. All right, let's go ahead and begin. You'll notice that here I have a brand new Adobe Illustrator file opened up, ready to go. I have it set to painting, so I have all of my painting tools up that I need, my brushes, color palette. And so what I'm going to do first is I have to put my artwork in its place on the artboard. So I go to File and Place. There's my artwork, feather drawing. I bring it in, and it's right here attached to my mouse. I click, and there it is. Now you can see it's fairly large, so I need to zoom out with a Control or Command minus. All right, and I need to go ahead and zoom in and center it on my artboard. To do that, I'm always going to use my Shift key to do that. So I'm going to hold my Shift key. Then I left-click my mouse, go to one of the four corners, and my cursor becomes a double arrow. I shrink it down, release, and then I move it up into the artboard. Now I can go ahead and move the artboard over and zoom in. Now I can go ahead and finish resizing it. So once again, I hold the Shift key, and I'm going to left-click and drag down so it gets really close to the full size of the stage. Okay, so now I have my artwork, my artboard, it's all set inside there. What I need to do now is go ahead and lock this layer and label that drawing. Click off the side, and I have to open up a brand new layer. And the one I put on top is where my artwork is going to actually be created. So I'm going to create a new layer by clicking on this little white box with the plus sign. That creates a new layer in there. You notice it's above the other one there. So what I can do right now is I'm going to hide this layer so I can draw my brush. So I'm going to hide that layer. And on this upper layer here that's still selected, I'm going to select the line tool. If you remember from the class of the video, we're going to create the using the custom brush with our line tool and our variable width tool. So I've created my line. Just left-clicked and dragged the line horizontally. Then I Command and plus to zoom into it. Now I'm going to go over to my variable width tool, which is right here. I've got my cursor on it right now. I left-click on it just one time. Now I'm going to go ahead and click anywhere on my object here. I'm on the path, and I can go ahead and click and create an anchor point. So I click there once, and then I just drag out with my left click. And you notice it creates that line. That line is created there in a nice tapered line. You'll notice one side is much thinner, one side is a little wider, but I want this one end to be just a little bit heavier. So I'm going to go ahead and click here and then tape out a line, just bring out ever so much, and then release. So when I let go and I click off the side, you see I have a long line. It's tapered at either end, but one side is just a little bit thicker than the other side. One side is just a little quicker taper, and the other one's a longer. This is great. This is exactly what I'm looking for, and what you should be looking for in yours. Now, to put that brush into the brush library, I simply click on my black arrow, then I'll select my new brush pattern here that I've created. I left click and hold and drag it and hover over the brushes palette. And then I release. Once I get that, you'll see this little window that comes up. Now you have different options here for how you want the brush to work when we're working with it. For this case, we're going to use Art Brush. So I'm going to select Art Brush, and I'm going to ignore Scatter and Pattern. We'll talk about those later in class. For right now, using the Art Brush, I'm going to say OK. And you'll see from this next menu that pops up, with this one right here, this is how you can say how you want that art brush to work. We're going to leave all the presets alone, including right here in the middle on the upper left-hand side here where it says stretch to fit stroke length. We're going to leave that alone. That's what we want. We're going to say OK. And you can see that my brush now has been added right here into the brush file. So I can take the one that's on the artboard and hit the delete key and get rid of it. I don't want it anymore because I've got a copy of it in my library. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom out, go to Control or Command and minus. There we are. Now I'm going to bring my feathers back up. Now they are. Now I'm going to go in and I can navigate and zoom into one of the feathers so that I can go ahead and trace it. So I'm going to go ahead and go with my Command or Control plus. And then I use my space bar and left click on my mouse. And there's feather number 1. So now what I need to do is I need to go over to my paintbrush, select it, and then I select my new custom brush. You can see if I click on this drop down menu, it's here. Likewise, it's down here. So either place I can go and pick it from there, either one. So I've got it selected now. So now what I can do is go ahead and draw with my thing. So I'm going to first try experimenting. I'm going to go ahead and draw one line that goes up to down. And you'll see it has a long, smooth taper. I like that a lot. So I'm going to Command Z to go ahead and get rid of that one. And I'm going to start right off on my feather here. I'm going to start right here on the top in the center. And I'm going to come right down, trace it, come back up. Try to keep it all one length if I can. There we go. There's one. Now also the other side, but up here I'm going to start directly on top of the feather. And then I'll bring that line over and down, keeping it all one length. Because remember, every time you let go of that mouse, you're creating a new stroke. And remember, that stroke of the pen is one long image. You see that? It's one long image. So now I'm going to go ahead and do one right down the center spine of the feather. So I'll start right here. Bring it right down. Remember how earlier when we were talking about in the first part of our first module, talking about are you better pushing a line or pulling a line? This is where that knowledge really comes in handy. Now, and basically, as we know that my line starts out thin and gets thick, I'm going to go ahead and start out with a thin line at the edge and go toward the center spine. So here's my thin. I'm going to left click and drag and bring it in. Now I'll start the thin side over here and bring it in. There's my leaf. It is done and done. Now for you guys, you're going to go back in and I'm going to go back and I'm going to do one more leaf for you, but I'm not going to do all of them, but you're going to end up doing all of them because for you, this is really good practice, eye-hand coordination for tracing. So let's go back in. I'm going to go to the next one here. So I'm going to left click and drag the next one. One long line, down, back up, back down, and over. Now I'll start back the next time, and again, I start right on the line, not in front of it, but I start on the line here, and I trace right past it, and come straight down. And remember, when you're tracing your lines and you're overlapping this inking that you're doing, you want these lines to overlap because you are going to want them to be basically, if you will, enclosed spaces, okay? I'm going to do another one now. It's going to go right down the spine here. Draw that in there, and then I release. Here we go. Now I'm going to do some smaller ones which go right on the inside here. So let's go ahead and start with this one right here. And I'm going to go ahead and bring it in and down. Start on the outside, in and down. So I get this thinner to thick, thin to thick. So I come to this one, thin to thick, thin to thick. See, wherever I start my line, that's where it's going to go. Okay. Now I go back over to this side. This is a nice big one. Look at that. A couple of wobbles in that. There we go. Now, if I decide that those lines in the center are too big, here's how you can make them smaller. Select your white arrow and then click on the first line. Select it once, then hold the Shift key and select the next one. And you hold, by holding the Shift key, you can select all of these lines simultaneously. So I'm clicking, I'm going up one, and one. Then from when I've got those selected, right, I can go ahead and I can make that line quality just a little bit thinner, right? I can go ahead and make that line quality just a little bit thinner. I can go ahead and do this. I can go over here where it says, next to brushes, it says stroke. Click on that stroke panel, and then I bring up my line weight again. So I can go ahead and watch this when I click on the down arrow. Notice those arrows get thinner. Those lines get thinner, right? So I can thin that line up. It's still the shape, but it's just a thinner line. Now I can click off to the side, and I am all good to go. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and color these two images. I'm not going to do all of them. You're going to have to do all of them for the project. So I want you to practice this. So, but to go ahead and color them, here's what you're going to do. You'll basically go back over to your black arrow, and you'll go back in and you'll select a generous box around the objects that you've drawn. You'll notice that they'll highlight, and you'll see the spines lit up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Object, Expand or Expand Appearance, whichever one it asks for. And Expand Appearance, what that is basically, it tells the old lines, the new lines to see each other so that we can fill with color. It connects the lines. So any lines that are touching will connect. So now while it's still selected, I go to Object again, and I go to Live, Paint, Make. Now I can click off to the side. So I did Object, expand or expand appearance, and then I went object, live, paint, make. In doing so, now I need to go, I'm ready for color. So I need to go and get my paint bucket. My paint bucket is hiding underneath this right here. It's underneath the shape builder tool, and otherwise known as the Death Star tool. I can go ahead and click on that, left click and hold. There's my paint bucket right there underneath. Now I can move my paint bucket over. You'll notice when I move it over the objects that I get a red outline inside those areas. That means my artwork is hot, it's ready for color. So now I can go ahead and do some coloring. So I can, if I wanted to use the original image or photo that I had from the module in our Canvas page, I can use that. Or I can go ahead and be inspired and start with a base color and do some variations of that for my feathers. So I'm going to use the one here, and I'm going to go a light, kind of a light green here, light green there. Maybe then let's go ahead and go in with a, something maybe kind of a brownish for the lower part. And I can click on here, brown, brown, I kind of like that. And maybe that lower part down here, I want to make it kind of a dirty brown. So I can use this guy right here, which is my color picker, right? So notice I see my colors here, I see my colors over here, and I can use either one. Matter of fact, I wanted to go back in here and custom, I can just go and by randomly pick in here. So I can pick something that's maybe gray, kind of a grayish purple down here, if I wanted to, and I can go and put that color in. Let's do that one. And drop, there's the color in. First feather, done. Let's go ahead and pick the next one up here. Let's do an orange scheme. So I'm going to select maybe an orange this time. And I'm going to go and select, let's go and do orange, orange. And I will do every other one of these. Then I'll maybe do the other one, probably a brown, perhaps. Let's go ahead and pick a nice, maybe a khaki. Let's see about that right there. Let's see what that does. It doesn't quite pop it as much as I'd like. Maybe a darker brown. Oh, yes, I like that a lot more. So now I'm going to put a dark brown in there. And done. So you can see I've got two of my feathers done and colored, ready to go. Now, once you're going to do this on all of them, you're going to outline all your feathers, then come back and color all the feathers, okay? But let's go ahead and I'm going to experiment and show you how to export this. When I'm ready to, Command minus, 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 right? I would expand everything there. And you notice I've got two of my feathers are all colored, ready to go. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and I can hide my drawing layer. So I'm going to use and hide the eyeball. Look at that. And it hides it. I've got just those two nice feathers sitting right there. Now, I'm going to export this, but I want to export it with a transparent background. So, as we've seen before in the video, File, Export, Export As, okay, File, Export, Export As. Now I can select it. It's down at the bottom here. I can say Feather, and go ahead down at the bottom here and say it's set for PNG. Now I can click on that and you can see I've got all these other file types, but I want it to be a PNG because a PNG allows me to have a transparent background. Now I'm not going to select Use Artboard because I just want the feathers by themselves. And I'm going to say Export. Now with the pop-up menu that comes up, the resolution, the PPI, that's the pixels per inch, we talked about that before in our previous video, is I want that to be 300 because I want to be nice high quality. I'm going to leave the this part alone. The background color, I'm going to turn that to transparent. And now I just have to go ahead and say OK. Boom. It is done. I have just done it. Now if I go over to my demo folder, which is right here on the right, there they are. There's the feathers. Open them up, and there they are all by themselves. Now here's the great thing I can show you about this, about these feathers being inside here like this. Watch this. I can go ahead now, and if I lock this feather, this layer that's in here in Adobe Illustrator, and then hide this layer, add a new layer, selecting the Create New Layer button here, this little white box with a plus sign, I can now import that feather over and over and over again. Watch this. File and Place. Bring my feather in and place it and click. And there it is. So now it's really small here. Let me go ahead and enlarge that here. There's my feathers. Now I can go ahead and I can move them out here and notice that there's nothing behind it. They're all nice and clean. These are nice clean images so that I could go back in and I could reuse these over and over again and then put them anywhere. Now that I've got it in here though, I can go ahead and I can convert it digitally. And I've got those and just make copies of it by holding the Alt key and drag, Alt key and drag, Alt key and drag, right? I can rotate and do all kinds of good stuff. So what I'm going to have you do right now is you're going to go back in and you're going to do this for yourself. Good luck. Talk to you soon.